It really is. Like a fat fuck lately, though. It's all right. In moderation.
I guess we'll just go right into it.
Let's do it.
Welcome to OWC, Ohio WrestleCast number 4. We have a
special edition.
Yes.
Very special edition. Usually when you say it's a very special edition, it's like a kid is going to get diddled or something. Where you're like, this is a special edition of Different Strokes today. That's not going to, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, and then
it's
there's
not
a
going to
disclaimer
happen.
message at the end.
Yeah, we don't need a disclaimer, but it is a special edition of the podcast today.
For sure. Which, as you could probably see right now, Jeff Lights Out Hughes returns.
If
to
they're
Matt Archer.
listening to us on iTunes or, one of their other favorite podcasts.
Oh yeah, they can't.
They
see
cannot
that, really.
see
Yeah,
him.
I guess I got
so we
keep
have
that
to
in
tell
mind.
them.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to go back and watch this.
No.
I'm going to listen to it. I like to listen to us.
I will because I have to. But
you're
yeah.
going to watch this plenty because
I like
tough for it.
to be honest with you, I like the clips a lot more that you've been doing.
Really?
I think they've been great.
Everybody's got a couple minutes.
Yeah. The first couple podcasts we did, I've watched the whole thing. The last couple I haven't. I've skipped around a lot.
Yeah.
But to listen to it, because I listen to a podcast every night as I fall asleep.
Yeah, I've been doing that too.
So, it's great. I wear the little earbuds. They fall out when I roll over, and it works out great. But
the clips you actually get.
They're
nice and short and sweet,
yeah.
like one topic at a time. I feel like it kind of gets people to watch the full thing, or at least watch the show at some point.
Plus those automatic plays that Facebook does too. A couple times I was just scrolling past. They're sweet.
Yeah,
that's it. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is not everybody has an hour and a half to sit down, but you're scrolling through and you see something that's interesting. You got a couple minutes. It might lure you in. Yeah.
No, good.
So,
For
anyways,
sure. I'm glad you like them.
So anybody who is listening, to my left, we have Jeff Lights Out Hughes.
Hey yo.
Yeah.
He is a MMA heavyweight champion, but he's also a lifelong wrestling fan, and he's joined us today.
Yes, sir.
To talk a little wrestling, man, and I'm excited because Jeff also first cousin, close as a brother, and but we have different opinions on things in pro wrestling
and everything else in life.
And hopefully we can keep our debates verbal, because if it involves fisticuffs, I am losing, and
I hope it doesn't get to that point, but it might.
And my bookings will probably go down, but that's okay.
I can't not agree with any of that. I'm the same way.
I should have switched spots with Mark just for this podcast.
Maybe
just for this one.
So,
well, you want to? You know what I was thinking, man, is MMA and professional wrestling have been linked together for a long time. I mean, just ultimately, the premise is the same. It's two dudes, or most in more recent years, two women, getting in there and fighting, and the better man or woman winning. Of course, we know what professional wrestling is, and we know what MMA is. We know that there's a difference involved, but it's still the same concept where people want to see. You want to see the fighter that you like win, the fighter that you don't like lose. So there is a lot of comparisons, and there always has been. But the fan bases, seem to be at odds with one another. The MMA fan base will tell you how phony wrestling is, and some of the wrestling fan base will tell you that MMA borrows more from wrestling than they ever want to admit, and I do think that's true. But I think we have the perfect guy here to talk about that a little bit today. So, Jeff, you're wildly successful right now in MMA. You're doing great, but you grew up a wrestling fan. So, what do you take anything from wrestling into your MMA career? Like, obviously not the physical things that will not get you very far.
Yeah.
If he tries to powerbomb, powerbombs do work in it.
We've
seen it.
And one Walls of Jericho has worked.
One Walls of Jericho has worked. If you try to tune up the band with a super kick in the octagon or in a cage, it's not going to get you very far. But what from professional wrestling do you think? What kind of parallels do you think there are?
First and foremost, I consider them both in the same category as a combat sport. I think they are. They're very physical. Obviously, one, you're getting punched as hard as you can. You're getting kicked as hard as you can. But guess what? On the other aspect, getting slammed on the mat 200 times a match is hell on your body. So that, you have to be an athlete to do both. A pretty good athlete at that. But what I take away from professional wrestling is the production value. WWE, sometimes WCW, ECW, they did it right, and I think that MMA needs to take more from that. They started doing that with like the the promos and the just building it like a wrestling match almost, and like you're right, the MMA community thinks that they started doing that, but if you've watched wrestling since '87 or even earlier, they've been doing that. It's always been that. It's a show, and that's what MMA. You go to a fight, it's a show.
It's building up the hype for one guy fighting another.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they need to just get those bad thoughts out of their head, like we're nothing like each other. We are so much like each other. We're 95% like each other.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm trying to think back, it was about maybe 10 years ago or so, where I think Tito Ortiz is like really a guy that can be compared in both genres, because we know we're MMA fans. Neither one of us are going to sit there and tell you that Tito was really, even in his prime. Well, in his prime, he might have been the best because he was ahead of the curve, but he's not a top 10 all-time guy. He's not a top 10 light heavyweight. But almost everybody knows who Tito was. Everybody knows the Tito Ken Shamrock fights. They weren't great fights.
No, they were one-sided, very one-sided.
But they sold the hell out of them.
Yep.
Tito sold the hell out of them. Shamrock, obviously did have his stint in the WWF where, so he could bring that to it. But they sold the fight, and ultimately it is a business. MMA isn't necessarily about the best fighter versus the best fighter all the time. There is that, but then there's also Chael Sonnen is not even close to being the best fighter anymore, but he sells fights. Bellator's going to put him on the top of their card. Rampage Jackson as well. There's guys that sell fights because it brings in the money. It's a business, and that's the same thing that wrestling's always been. Nobody would ever say Hulk Hogan was a better wrestler than Ric Flair. But no. Hulk Hogan sold tons and tons of tickets. Yeah. Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant was such a marquee matchup, and it sold the tickets, not because they were the two, I'm doing air quotes for our audio fans, the two best, but they were the biggest names. They could sell them, the individuals. And like Jeff was saying, MMA has embraced it a little bit. Probably could afford to embrace it a little bit more, I think.
Yes. Just like everybody was, a lot of successful local, top regional guys were asked the same question. What do you think about CM Punk being in the UFC right away? I didn't hear one person go, oh, he deserves to be there. He deserves to be there. But me, maybe a couple were out there. But me, I said that opens up more exposure to different fans, and if he goes in there and gets his ass kicked, which he did, it still brings that this different fan base, and then it's like, okay, then that guy he's very good in the ring, and you see him in a cage and you go, oh shit, this is different a little bit.
Yeah.
But for him not to deserve to, it is a business, and it'd be great if more people came over and tried it.
You want as many eyes on the product as you possibly can.
That is all yeah.
If it was 100 people or 1,000 people or 10,000 people that never had ordered a UFC show in their life, ordered it because they wanted to see what CM Punk did, and then maybe you got, 5-10% of those people to go, I never really watched this before, but I like it.
This is cool.
Any sort of exposure is good exposure. And you talk CM Punk, Brock Lesnar didn't get that same backlash because he was a legitimate NCAA wrestling champion. There's so many good wrestlers that go into MMA and didn't have the success that Brock did. Brock is a different beast. But the reason why Brock is a top draw, and always was, made tons of money there, brought in those wrestling fans. Absolutely did. They wanted to see how he did. The people who hated him wanted to see him get his ass kicked.
Yep.
The people who liked him in wrestling wanted to see him succeed. But you tuned in. You tuned in to see what would happen.
I think the same thing happened in reverse too with the Ronda Rousey.
Oh, absolutely.
Like a lot of UFC people that probably talked shit about wrestling probably watched WrestleMania.
For those same reasons.
Yeah.
Either you're a fan and you wanted to see her succeed, which in MMA, personally, I wasn't a fan. But, man, we talked about it on an earlier pod. How amazing was that match? Yeah. She was great. So if you're a fan of hers, you want to see her succeed.
I think that match stole the show.
For sure.
Absolutely.
It was great. That was fun.
And Ronda Rousey's a huge, huge, huge name. with women, especially now too, which in both sports is growing. Women's MMA and women's pro wrestling is bigger than it's ever been. So her and her star power bringing that along, and like you, I mean that's the reverse. She brought her star power from MMA into wrestling, some legitimacy, if you want to call it that. I mean, I don't think today in 2018 anybody still thinks, well, she's an MMA fighter, so her going to pro wrestling, she's going to be real, and they're not. Like, no, it's part of it. But the way that she incorporated it in, I thought was brilliant, and I'm excited to see what she does next.
No,
works for me.
Yeah, she's getting a title shot, right? Or has that already happened?
Yeah, Money in the Bank next month.
Yeah.
Do
you think it was kind of a too soon of
shotgunned it?
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean, if they're trying to make her like the female Brock Lesnar, I guess it makes sense. But I don't think she is the female Brock Lesnar. Not to me.
Well, not yet. But Brock started in wrestling, was awesome.
Oh, he was phenomenal when he first started.
Then went to MMA and was the UFC champion.
Yeah.
So he had a ton of success. So his brand in both is bigger than what Ronda Rousey's is, because Ronda hasn't had any experience so far in wrestling, well, except for the one WrestleMania match, which again was great.
Yeah.
And they're treating her like a precious toy right now. You're gonna do everything you can to shine her up and make her look as good as she possibly can. But that being said, she's taking that opportunity and so far doing well with it.
No, I agree.
Man, so that's Jeff and I were talking before we started the podcast too. When we talk MMA and pro wrestling, most of us longer fans, we know Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock got advertised World's Most Dangerous Man.
Yeah.
They even had him do a shoot fight with Vernon Tiger White. Do you remember that?
No, I do not remember.
They had Vernon. Wasn't that one of his students? I think. From
Lions Den.
Well, he beat the crap out of him on Raw. But so everybody knows Shamrock, and we just talked about Brock Lesnar, now Rousey, CM Punk, Bobby Lashley. Had some success in MMA, but over in Japan, the crossover is much more frequent, and because we talked before we got here. I mean, you got MMA guys, former UFC fighters like Mark Coleman had a professional wrestling career. Kevin Randleman. Don Fry, Dan Severn is still actually doing indie shots.
Oh God!
In pro wrestling,
I heard he couldn't. He had a hard time walking.
He'll still put you in that beast choker, man.
Oh, yeah. I like that. I like Dan Severn.
Some of the other Japanese guys, Sakuraba, Josh Barnett,
Rampage was involved with TNA there for a minute.
Rampage was involved for a while.
Chael Sonnen.
Sonnen.
He started as a WCW power plant guy.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and if you ever hear Chael Sonnen talk at all, you can obviously tell he's a pro wrestling guy. Everything about that guy he's a pro wrestling promo.
He was one of the few people defending CM Punk when he was going into UFC.
Chael Sonnen is a fantastic wrestler. He's always been a wrestling MMA guy. So he talks everybody into the crowd and then does his fight where he's not trying to go out there and knock your head off. He's going to take you down.
He's smothering you.
Smother you and winning points. But he'll tell you that he's going to knock your head off and eat your heart and do all these things.
Yeah.
And then even more recently, there's Filthy Tom Lawler.
Yeah, and I heard he's had a great.
And Matt Riddle.
Matt Riddle's the man right now. Yeah,
on the indie scene. So I mean, even as recent as those guys, and those are guys we all seen.
Did him and Cody Rhodes have a match? Because I think I watched. Yeah, I think they did. And I'm pretty sure. Like I watched some of it. It was pretty good.
I'm sure it'd be great.
I think
Riddle's
it was
doing fantastic on the indie scene now. I haven't seen any Tom Lawler's work, but. Again, you wouldn't know there. I mean, every single thing about he came out to Real American one time. Like
he dressed up. Yeah, he came out to Hulk Hogan, boas, and that's what we need. As much as I hate the guy because he's a fucking idiot, is Jason Mayhem Miller. He said it. He goes, because they were all like, he always had these crazy entrances, and they're like, what is that? Is that like to hype you up? He's like, no, that's to hype the fans up. It's like I grew up a pro wrestling fan. I wanted to be a pro wrestler. I ended up fighting. There's not enough of this, It's like two pieces of white bread going in there and fighting each other. They could be the best two fighters in the fucking world, but you start throwing some trash talk behind it, and it goes, whoa.
Well, the fans recognize him. The fans are excited to see him. And Mayhem was a run-of-the-mill fighter.
Yeah.
He was good.
He was a little bit before his time.
He was never great. He was good. He was good enough to where, because you can't just be a tomato can going out there and getting beat every time, but you got the cool entrance. It's not going to matter. You have to be good enough to at least somewhat back it up. And that's about what Mayhem was. But yeah, man, those big entrances, and he was entertaining. He was a character. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with having characters in MMA. And I think the purist would shit all over that, but I disagree.
I love it.
I wish I had a little. Back it up.
I wish I had a little bit more charisma, because the guy I just fought, man, that guy was full of charisma.
Yeah,
crocheting
and stuff. Yeah. Well, they watching that on TV, they definitely portrayed him as the babyface.
Oh yeah,
look at this good guy with his crocheting and da. Yeah, and you turn it up a little bit, Chael Sonnen style. You could have been.
I could have been the ultimate
super duper heel. Yeah. As soon as you get on the microphone, be like, "How about them Eagles, huh?"
Well, and then you've got
missed opportunity.
It wasn't this opportunity.
You've got like Rose Namajunas, who her thing is not talking trash and being nice to people. Even that is kind of like her gimmick.
It's a gimmick.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
I kind of like it. Yeah.
It's
even the purist who is like, we don't want that sort of thing. Well, some people do. So like, those will be your people. Like the Rose Namajunas.
Then you got Conor McGregor that can hang with the best on the mic. He might be the best on the mic.
Yeah.
You know,
I can't believe we talked pro wrestling MMA this long without bringing up McGregor, because he's. He is. Yeah, he is the one who's really brought it to the fore. I mean, all the way they dresses and the way that he walks, like if there are cameras on him.
He walks like Vince McMahon.
He calls it the Billy Walk.
Yeah, he does it on purpose. Yeah. Why wouldn't you? Every last bit of you, your name is a character, and here's a guy who got himself a multi-million-dollar boxing fight with the best boxer ever because he's a character and a name. Yeah. You know, I mean,
and he has the fucking talent to back it up.
Right.
That's you can't just go out there and be a character. But if you don't also have to be the best, the greatest of all time, because Conor McGregor is not the greatest of all time. We probably can agree on that. Mm-hmm. He's a hell of a fighter. If he gets back into fighting, maybe goes down as top 10 best in the world. But there's never going to be another fight that I won't buy because if Conor McGregor's in it. Mm-hmm. And
money.
He's money.
Yeah,
he's fucking money.
It's entertainment.
In MMA and in pro wrestling, that's the guy your promoter will love. Is a guy that is absolute money. Ric Flair is just money all day. Ric Flair was money everywhere he went because you could promote Ric Flair and Ric Flair could promote himself. That and then had the talent to back it up as well. That's why we're sitting there talking about a handful of guys, because they don't grow on trees.
No.
And I think there's tons of good MMA fighters, tons of talented dudes, and there's so many good professional wrestlers, guys that can tell a good story in the ring, but you can count them on basically a couple of hands of the guys that are talented inside, but also can promote themselves as a brand. Conor McGregor, your Ric Flairs, they're rare.
Yeah, you can almost put those two guys in their own category.
Pretty much, yeah. Man. That's a good talk. We could go more in depth with that. Yeah. But this is the Ohio WrestleCast, right? So we got to get into talking some pro wrestling, Mark.
Oh, we do. Top fives again this time. Part 2 you want to go for, right?
We want to do top fives, or do you want to do? We were talking maybe doing like underrated, overrated.
We can do that as well. Either one.
I could do both, man. I'm not pressed for any time right now.
I know that Jeff and I think we all are. I think we're all huge tag team guys, right?
Yeah.
So do you want to go down the list? Maybe do you want to break it down by promotions or just lump them all together? Like you want to talk top 5 tag teams?
Yeah.
So.
We can do it all by promotions if you want, or
I think if we do 5 tag teams in each promotion, we might be
running in the same
glamorizing the Nasty Boys a little bit more. I'd like to. I love the Nasty Boys.
The Nasties would have been in my top 5 WCW tag teams.
Yeah,
they really would have been.
Yeah. I love the Nasty Boys.
I don't know how many I can actually remember from other promotions.
Right.
ECW is going to be a little harder for me. I loved ECW, but tag teams.
Jeff is our guest. So I say we either do one or two things. We can either do top 5 altogether, or maybe top 3 from each promotion. And you're the guest of honor.
Top 3.
Okay,
from
yeah.
all promotions.
I like it.
I think that's
You can see the preparation that we go through before we get here. What do you want to do?
Well, who wants
Let's
to?
go, Mark. You want to start her off?
You guys want to start with WWE or you want to start with ECW?
let's do WWE. And
Yeah,
then
that's probably
WWE, your top 3 WWE.
easiest to
tag teams.
hardest.
All right.
Yeah.
well, mine will probably be from the era I watched.
That's
you know what I
fine.
mean. Well, when I think of tag team wrestling in WWE, I immediately think of the Hardy Boys.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll probably put Hardy Boys at number 1 just because of they're probably my favorite tag team if I think about it. That they were extremely influential.
They were influential. You got to think they were around. When was that big time ladder match at No Mercy or 99 in Cleveland with the ladder match with Edge and Christian?
Was
Dude,
that
there
No
was
Mercy?
so many.
Yeah, that was No
I
Mercy.
couldn't even tell you.
99.
99, October 99. So you think October 99, and then that was before all the TLCs, of course. And
Yeah.
that's before, I mean, some of these crazy high flyers on the indies and stuff. Like, it's before all of that. So influential is key word there.
For sure. I mean, there's just so many memorable matches I can not remember at this point. You know what I mean? Like, they kind of all just blur together, but I was always psyched for them. And which would lead me to number 2 being Edge and Christian.
That's a good one.
For probably the same exact reasons.
They didn't have, if you think about it, their run together wasn't all that long.
But it was epic.
They were great, man. They were great together. And they'll always be lumped together with the Hardys. And if your third one is the Dudleys, then we can just sit there and talk about all three.
Yeah.
But you know, they were, innovative and influential. I can't agree with you more on both those teams right now.
And see, number 3 is going to be a hard one because I wasn't prepared, even though this was. I believe I'm the one who brought this title down. But shit, the Dudleys would be the obvious choice, but I don't want to go there.
You can go there if you want to.
I can't think of many tag teams off the top of my head. Maybe I'll just go the Dudleys.
Well,
Hall of Famers.
They are Hall of Famers now, and again, you want to talk revolutionary, man. I mean, there was nothing like those first TLC matches. There really wasn't. There's been ladder matches, plenty that were always great, but
That Edge and Christian and Hardy Boys ladder match, in my opinion, grew that TLC. Like it was like, okay, we have something here.
Yeah.
there was never a tag team ladder match before that one.
No.
And I remember thinking like, oh, tag team ladder match, like that would be pretty cool. And like these guys are kind of flying around, like this would be pretty good.
Yeah.
There was not that one. That match deserves way more praise than it gets because there was never anything like that before.
They went out there and
As good as the Shawn and Razor ladder matches were, they were great, and they were first, and they told them probably a better story, but the things that those guys did, those 4 guys did, in that
I
ladder
can't
match,
compare it.
No,
I would say the same thing. I would say that's the more entertaining of the ladder matches.
yeah. And you got the Dudleys as number 3.
I guess so. And like it'll probably come to me as you guys go. I was like, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I think of that?
Well,
But
I see.
I guess it's a good start for
I
the
can
top.
go a different route, and I'll go second because I'll be the elder statesman here because I grew up on a little bit of a different era of tag teams. The British Bulldogs were around like at the end, like when I started watching wrestling, because they were bigger WrestleMania 2 era, like 86. Like I think they came in 85, so it's like 85 to like 88 was like their big run. So I didn't get to see them that much. I know that they were great. I am going to say the Hart Foundation. That was one of my top WWF tag teams. Brett and the Anvil, man, they were just, and I didn't really see their heel run until going back and watching prior. I remember them more as baby faces, but they were great, man. And the Heart Attack was a simple but a cool finish.
It was kind of because I was the same way. Obviously, I was born in '88, so I didn't get to see their heel run. But going back, it's almost weird watching Bret Hart as a heel. Anvil's more believable as a heel at that point in their careers.
Big barrel chest, and he was louder, like,
laughing.
Yeah. So Hearts are definitely on there. Demolition's absolutely on there. Because I listened to the Demolition episode of Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard,
Loved it.
and the thing is that like we're sitting here 2018 with hindsight, and we can look back and say, oh, aren't they kind of Road Warriors rip-offs? Well, I mean, maybe, but like you gotta understand, like people didn't have both wrestling on, you didn't get both shows depending on where you lived. So for a lot of people, including myself, we saw Demolition first.
Yeah.
Demolition was the original. I remember seeing like magazines and stuff knowing who the Legion of Doom was before they got to WWF. But for me, Demolition was the first, and I mean, they were legitimately scary when you're a kid. Like, that gimmick was so good, the music was so good, and you know what? They weren't terrible in the ring. They had some
decent
good matches.
yeah.
Matches with the Hearts. They had one at SummerSlam '88 and at '90. Both really good matches. Had some good matches with the Brainbusters. Had some good matches with the Rockers. So whereas the Road Warriors, I don't think anybody can really think of like the, oh my god, that was the great LOD match. Like, they were cool as shit. But
I'm going to go out on a limb and say I have never watched an LOD match that I was blown away by.
No,
I was just like, oh, I get it.
I gotta show you a Steiner's match from WCW where it's like 10 minutes of them just beating the crap out of each other and nobody sells anything. It's great. It's great. I love the Brainbusters, but I would consider them more NWA, like, cause
they had a short run,
a year and a half. I'm not a huge Rockers fan. Like, they were really good. Like, I'm a classic wrestling guy. I know the Rockers were way better actually in ring than like the Rock and Roll Express, but never a huge Rockers fan. So I'm gonna go into the modern era team that has been together a long, long time and probably doesn't get the recognition they deserve. I'm saying the Usos, man.
Wow.
I think the Usos are a top tag team of all time in the WWF because they've been together for about 10 years now.
They've been around
in
for
the
a
WWF,
while.
and they've evolved and they've gotten better to the point where, I mean, their stuff with the New Day a couple of years ago was just fantastic matches. We really can't miss matches. And I thought they were actually okay as baby faces before. Like, they do the tandem dives and stuff and dives.
I used to prefer, like, when they did their heel turn, I was like, man, I liked the tribal look with the paint and stuff, but like the heel Usos grew on me over time. And now they're kind of...
And they're kind of back to being baby faces because they were so good in that role.
Exactly.
I'd say you had 10 years together as a team without really altering. And that's with respect to the Hardys, the Dudleys, and the ENC, but they split. They had separate singles careers.
Yeah.
I think the Usos, just that longevity, would put them in there. I could probably argue the Dudleys as my third also, but just for different sake to have this discussion, I think the Usos are great tag team.
They're definitely. I don't watch much modern day wrestling. You guys know that, but I think from what I've watched, they are the longest tag team. The New Day could be in that discussion too for modern tag teams. I think they're entertaining as hell.
Yeah.
But the Usos definitely are the tag team of this era.
No, I agree. I mean, sure. New Days hold records too, so I think they'd also be a good candidate too. But Usos, I wouldn't even like. I'm surprised you said the Usos.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm more of a classic guy. And that's the thing. Like, I can tell you all the great Demolition matches. I haven't probably seen all the great Usos matches, but again, that longevity, I think, is just something to speak of. And the fact that even right now today, an Usos match and a big time match, you're excited to see it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great match
for sure.
So we got our guest, Mr. Jeff Hughes, over here. You got 3 WF tag teams.
I have 3, and one is the same as Mark's. I want to say the Hardys.
Nice.
I'm going to put them at number 1 just because they got such a big pop. At one point, they were hot, man. They were so hot. Like, everybody they heard that music and they just went nuts. And you knew it was going to be something crazy,
If you think of that time too, the late 90s, early 2000s, and we can make fun of it now, but like the Hot Topic scene was like, it was really, really big.
Yeah.
The baggy pants and the tight shirts and like, the colors,
when they started coming out with Jeff Hardy started coming out with paint on his face, I kind of was like, all right.
I think that was the pills. The
the demons were coming out. But
no, and they still rock that style too. Like Jeff Hardy especially, he never stopped. He's still wearing the almost like Jinko size
Jeff
pants.
Hardy's always been Jeff Hardy, yeah.
And I mean, I thought they were pretty fucking cool when I was a kid too. I mean, I had tube socks that I cut holes into.
That was the.
That was like
the era that I grew up on.
You don't have to be embarrassed to say that because so many other kids did.
And I'm gonna go. They probably don't have the best in ring work, but my number 2 team probably might have been the most over is the New Age Outlaws.
How did I? Yeah, dude.
I mean,
Yeah.
There'd be a couple of times that the beginning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children, they had the whole damn thing written out on a sign. Like 20 people were holding up that, and it was just.
That attitude era, I mean, everybody recited it. Everybody recited it with them. If you can get the entire crowd doing your stick with you like that.
They were something else.
That's such a good story because look, they were two guys that they were just doing nothing with. They were two extra parts and they put them together and said, "Yeah, go ahead." And
it worked.
It worked. It was magic.
Yeah, I mean when you watch the old like the mid '90s tag teams, the Smoking Guns were one of the best, one of the bigger tag teams. 3 tag runs, and you knew. You knew Billy was the guy in that tag team. As a kid, I thought he was. Yeah. So for him to get in another tag team and it blew up the way it did, it was a good look for him. But my third team, man, I would say the Dudleys, but they're to me they were bigger in ECW. So.
They were made in ECW.
Yeah, they were more important in ECW to me.
Same reason. I mean, the LOD was there, and obviously they were one of the best tag teams of all time. But they never really felt like a WWE tag.
They were exactly. So with that, I'd probably say, I might just have to steal one of your answers and go with Demolition.
We'll let you go first on the next round, so you don't have to feel like stealing anything.
Yeah, but they were great, and. I would put them at number 3, and and you could flip flop any of those teams, in my opinion. Yeah.
I didn't necessarily have them ranked in order myself. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, my
top 3. Yeah.
We could talk about Demolition all day, though. I mean, you want to talk about a team, which is their entrance and the look and everything that they looked like. I mean, stars, and you knew who they were. You knew who they were when they came out. They got the big reaction.
They scared the shit out of you as a kid.
The Road Warriors did too. They still call the Road Warrior Pop. Those two teams will always be compared. But I think for us, being WWF guys, growing up on it, Demolition, man, is the coolest. I'd still pop right now to hear that.
Yeah, it's so awesome. Good. I think they are still doing some indie shows.
They do indie shots as Demolition. Actually, I've heard that Darso won't do Blacktop Bully, or he won't do Repo Man, which is kind of sad. But so I'd love to book the Repo Man. I'd have the Repo Man come and steal your car in the parking lot.
I would let him. I left the keys in there.
But yeah, I think they do come out and do the Demolition gimmick still on the Indies.
Yeah, so
pretty cool, man.
We have similar lists.
So you want to start us off on WCW?
WCW. Now I can almost put this one in order.
I think WCW, we're going to have a lot of the same. Well, if you think about it, the run of WCW was a lot shorter. It was over in 2001, and we just talked Edge and Christian, Hardys, Dudleys. That was when they were really breaking out about that time. Yeah. And then me with the Usos, way past that. Yeah. So the time frame's a lot more constricted. So I think we'll have some sames here. But
top 3 for me for WCW would be I was in love with Harlem Heat. Mm-hmm. I thought they were a phenomenal tag team. Mm-hmm. Number 2 was probably the Steiner brothers. They were, fucking Rick Steiner, and we all know Scott Steiner's a nutcase.
And number 3 is High Voltage.
Yep, Chronic. It's actually Chronic. Chronic. Number 3. Who could I put? I was thinking maybe the Nasty Boys because they had some entertaining matches. I watched that. After watching What Happened When, or listening to What Happened When.
Which you're listening to now?
Yeah, I got on it. You fucking asshole got me hooked on it.
You watched that one with Cactus?
Cactus and Max Power?
Or Max Payne?
Max Payne. Yeah. Oh, my God.
Well, the one with Sullivan was the one before, a month before.
Dude, they beat the shit out of each other. But the reason I say the Nasty Boys is one of my favorite tag team matches of all time is Uncensored 95.
Mm-hmm. There's Harlem Heat and the
Harlem Heat
fight.
And the Tornado tag team match, and it was Falls Count Anywhere, and they fought. They did the concession stand gimmick, the spot where, and there was mustard. Sensational Sherry was slipping, cracked her head on the cement. It was just the funnest fucking match, and I just love that. So I would put the Nasty Boys at number 3.
All right,
Nice.
man. You know, I mean, I'm thinking about it. I was thinking about it as you were talking, and like WWF always had a hot tag team division. Like again, when we first started, like there was the Hearts and the Rockers and the Brain Busters, and even like the Rougeaus. Like they weren't like a top team, but they were good.
They were good.
You know. Excuse me. WCW had some really great tag teams because you can't. The Steiner Brothers and Harlem Heat are definitely my top 3 as well. Longevity for sure. I mean, they had great matches together. Booker, of course, emerged as a bigger star, but the Steiner brothers we talked about the Steiners on the last pod we did. You go back to those early '90s Steiners matches. My God, they were so good, and they were so exciting. So I'm trying to think of that third team, and as I was doing it, there's so many that came into my head. Like the Outsiders should be in there.
Yeah,
Because
they really should.
How great were they? Like
I was thinking about them, but they were
awesome.
almost too
And
easy.
I love the Nasty Boys. There's actually a Nasty Steiners match from 1990 Halloween Havoc, and it's not a gimmick brawl or anything like that, but it's so good. I mean, they beat the shit out of each other. It's so good. The Hollywood Blondes were a cool team. Like,
Yeah, that was
like
cool.
there were some really really great teams going through WCW. That being said, mine is the Midnight Express, and you guys need to don't fall asleep me talking about the Midnight Express. You need to watch some Midnight Express. Jeff, Mark, have you ever watched any Midnight Express tag team matches?
I probably have, but I couldn't even tell you.
All right,
You probably fell asleep.
would you stop with with Jim Cornette as the manager, who is a great manager. And Cornette is a subject of his own because if you think all the other top managers, like Heenan was with a lot of guys, and Jimmy Hart was with a lot of guys. Until Cornette got to the WWF, it was just Cornette and the Midnight Express. Like that was it. But they were innovative for their time. They were Bobby Eaton is a fantastic worker, just a bar none great professional wrestler. And I grew up on the Stan Lane version. Stan wasn't as good of a wrestler as Bobby Eaton was, but he had more of the look, more of the charisma, more of the guy of your standard looking wrestler. And they had innovative double team moves. There was the same Southern style where the baby faces beat the shit out of them for like 6-7 minutes, and they sold and flopped, and Cornette would freak out, and then
Corny,
and he'd swing the racket around,
Yeah.
and then they would take over, and they would hit cool double team moves. I mean, like Bobby Eaton doing this damn Alabama Jam leg drop every match. He'd do the top rope knee drop like every match. They had the rocket launcher where they just press slammed him off for a splash. But they had so many good tandem double team moves, and they all made sense. They all pieced in at the right moment. And then the finish, like, nowadays it's always like a hot finish with like 5-6 false finishes. It wasn't really like that. Usually the babyface is coming in, boom, boom, boom. And then either they would get a good pin or Cornette would do something shitty and they would screw him over. And it was really the same formula through and through, but God, they were always good. We are going to take a minute to watch a Midnight Express match, and you're not going to fall asleep. And
You
you'll
can't
see-
fall asleep either, so we can't do it at 2 o'clock in
then
the morning.
Well, we can't do it about 10 o'clock at night anymore. I'll sleep out on these. But we'll watch some Midnight Express, and maybe you can see what I'm saying. But they came in through Crockett, so like 87 before WCW. But the match we'll watch is against the Southern Boys, which is Tracy Smothers and Steve Armstrong. So one of the Armstrong brothers. Yeah, one of the Armstrong brothers. Great match. Can't recommend watching some old Midnight Express enough. They're my third WCW tag team.
Damn. See, I wasn't a WCW guy. I've said this before, so these are gonna be.
Have you gone back and watched any like older WCW on the network?
I haven't at all. I think I went back and watched like the first episode of Raw ever, and then maybe kind of let it go from there, but didn't pay too much
I'll give
attention.
just a sidebar on this. Like, if you go back and watch old classic WCW in like the early '90s and stuff, 91, 92, the wrestling's probably better than the WWF.
I think it was.
It's not as fun. The nostalgia's not going to be there.
Production
it's
kind of
all-
sucked.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I
all
would.
veterans too, though.
Right. Yeah. So I would, I if you give me a choice of SummerSlam 91 versus Great American Bash 91, I'm going to watch SummerSlam because it's what we grew up on. It's what we know. But if you're objectively for just the wrestling itself, the wrestling's probably better than those old WCW shows.
No.
So worth a shot. If there's some wrestlers you're interested in, going through, looking back in those earlier eras, God, watch anything with Steiners. I mean, Steiners versus Doom. Just four big jacked up dudes beating the shit out of each other.
No, like I remember watching the Steiner brothers, and I remember the Outsiders. The Outsiders are the only ones I could think of.
Yeah.
Because that's why I started watching, is because of that whole.
national
A lot of
crossover.
people started watching
Over.
WCW because of that. Yeah.
But other than like, and I remember like random team ups of people that I enjoyed, but they weren't tag teams. So like,
Well, what are you thinking of?
and like
you're
I
talking like-
rember Harlem Heat as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're talking like
it's-
Luger and Sting, like.
Yeah, just random
Yeah,
team
they
ups where they
teamed
would.
up a decent bit, but they
Yeah.
weren't like known as a tag team.
But yeah, so when it comes to a top 3 tag team for WCW, that it's probably those three you've already named, because those are probably
yeah.
the 3 most well known that I would know somebody who wasn't.
And I'm
a
gonna
WCW
go
guy.
and watch his
We're gonna watch the Midnight.
Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, whatever you want to call it.
Here's the difference. There's a difference. I'm not as huge on the rock and roll. I'd probably put rock and roll actually in the overrated category because I don't think Robert Gibson was worth a shit as a wrestler.
They
at
just
all.
weren't believable.
Ricky Morton was one of the best selling baby faces. Like, I mean, his cell work was amazing. Their stuff in the ring, they were good. They weren't great. They weren't even on the same level as the Rockers or the Midnight Express really in ring for their talent. I don't think so personally. Different era.
Right.
Though, and honestly, if you go back and watch, even when they did that small stint in the Fed in '93 when they came over with like the Heavenly Bodies, it's good stuff.
I love the Heavenly Bodies.
The Heavenly Bodies were great.
They were.
Didn't I show you that match with the Steiners, the '93? They're so good.
They had a match. Man, no, they were in a battle royale. In '92, the Rampage '92.
Yeah.
And they were they were 2 of the last 3 guys in there. I don't remember who won it, but they
The
were
third guy?
the
Who was
third
the-
guy. Yeah, I don't remember. I remember watching it like, oh my god. Usually tag teams got fucked up in those.
The simple story, they actually stuck together.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they
Yeah.
were working as a team, and oh yeah, the Heavenly Bodies were the shit.
Yeah, Heavenly Bodies was good stuff.
Such a great name too, Heavenly Bodies.
And they
And
looked the part,
they
man.
well, the Heavenly Bodies was Dr. Tom Pritchard, was in better shape than his brother, and then the Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. Who,
The
I mean,
Gigolo.
Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey looked like the guy running the stand at the Waco homecoming, like
Exactly.
the
Beautiful
darts.
blonde mullet.
mullet with a handlebar mustache,
Beautiful
kind
mustache.
of a doughy body, and all of a sudden he's throwing moonsaults and super kicks like it's nobody's business, like back in '92, '93.
Damn.
Yeah, maybe we can watch some Heavenly Bodies.
It's fun. It really is. It's good stuff.
So we moved to ECW. Mark, do you even remember 3 ECW tag teams? We got
Like I said, I started watching ECW at the latter of
Yeah.
the original ECW days, and then I didn't watch any new ECW. But like I remember, shit, I don't remember anybody, not tag team wise.
Yeah, they didn't put a huge emphasis on tag teams there.
Very weak tag team.
It was always like the first or second match, and
Yeah.
then not even the tag title match would be besides the Dudleys.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Once the
like
Dudleys were gone,
Dudley Boys, and then what was we talked about on the last podcast too.
for tag teams.
Public Enemy.
Public Enemy.
Yeah, and like
Which was before like we really got into ECW. Like I didn't get into ECW till like the pay per view era, which was like
Right.
'97,
I didn't. I watched every week though when they got on TNN.
and that was like '99, 2000.
That was
so-
very late.
Yeah, it was very
Yeah.
late.
But then I
That's
went
where I was
back, and
watching.
with you, I'd watch them. And a couple times, I think we got a couple pay per views at Grandma's.
we got a couple pay per views.
I loved it. I was like blown. It was like something
It
new.
was crash
for
course
sure.
wrestling. You
Yeah.
know, like every segment would, boom to the next one, to the next one. You didn't give you a chance.
The
to
way I
exhale.
describe it is like the first time, like you're eating a hamburger and somebody puts a piece of cheese on it. You're like, this is fucking awesome.
yeah,
I liked it.
What is
before.
this?
yeah. Agreed.
Well, you got 3 tag teams, Jeff.
Dudley's number 1. That's
I
probably
think
going
it's
to
end all
be.
be all,
Yeah, they, like you said, man, they started riots and they fucking, you love to hate them.
Yep.
And then for me, I've always liked, not always, but as I started growing up, I liked the heels way more than the baby faces. I still hated them. I was like, these fucking assholes are terrible. And they used to, what was her name? Tommy Dreamer's girl, what was her name?
Beulah?
They
Yeah.
broke her neck and all that.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
3D broke Beulah's neck. I think he was
Poor
handcuffed to the
Spike
ropes.
Dudley
Yeah.
died, I think, 13 times from him.
Yeah.
Oh man, they were great. I I don't remember a whole lot. I remember the Pit Bulls. I didn't really like them, but I know they were.
Fuck the Pit Bulls.
Yeah,
I'm
there.
gonna give it Josh Griffiths with a fuck the Pit Bulls.
Yeah,
man.
I don't like.
They were never in one entertaining match.
No, they were just big, juiced up idiots.
They looked the part.
Yeah,
absolutely, they looked the part, but they never entertained me once.
Kind of like what Mark was saying, a lot of thrown together stuff. But I almost want to put Sabu and RVD together.
Yeah.
Okay.
They had a match at Heavyweight 98 with Jinsei Shizaki, who was Hakushi
And
Hayabusa.
Hayabusa, yeah.
It was like basically the Japanese Sabu.
Yeah. And we watched that on Grandma's computer like every 2 days. Like that was like you downloaded it I think on LimeWire or something. We watched it all the time.
So good.
A third tag team. I mean, would FBI be in there?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
For me, there's a couple different versions. The first one was Guido and Tracy Smothers.
Mm-hmm.
We gotta tell Mark about the FBI gimmick altogether.
Yeah,
Cause
you said FBI, and I'm like, who the fuck?
All right, so the FBI was the full-blooded Italians, and there's little Guido, who was
not what I thought.
He was Nunzio in the WWF, he's just a damn good wrestler.
Very good.
Well, there's a full-blooded Italian. So his original tag partner was Tracy Smothers, who is from Tennessee, the hills of Tennessee. There's not one bit of Italian in him at all. But they all he would do is do this the whole time. Not one bit of Italian in him. They had Big Sal, who was this like 600-pound like monster that never was part of the team, but he always just run in, do the splash. And their manager at first was the Big Don, Tommy Rich. And Tommy Rich, again, not one bit of Italian in him. He thinks he's from Georgia. He was an NWA champion back in like 81. Not one bit of Italian in them, but they were the full-blooded Italians. That was the gimmick. And I think even before that, they had a black guy. I think it was like J.T. Smith or something like that. They had a black guy.
They were like a fucking Italian cartoon group, man. They were just funny. They
were heels.
Well, how did I miss this?
We should go back and watch some FBI. After the pod, we're gonna be sitting watching wrestling for a little while.
I'm down for that.
Sure. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. So we're doing Sabu, RVD.
I would say Sabu and RVD because they were kind of a tag team to me, even though they didn't have a whole lot together, and but those two teams were together all the time.
So I'm gonna give you the same. I'm gonna give you the Dudleys and the FBI. The Dudleys were the absolute best team.
Yeah,
like they just were ECW, and they were in a promotion where the fans were smart and they knew like, oh, they're heels, but they're supposed to be heels. You know what I mean? Like, okay. They fucking hated the Dudleys.
They hated them.
They hated the Dudleys. The FBI, both incarnations, because later was Tony Mama Luke, where actually the matches were probably a little bit better.
Tony Mama Luke was pretty good.
Wrestler.
Yeah.
Good wrestler, man. The third is going to be the Eliminators, and that was Cronus and Saturn.
Fuck
yeah.
Forget about that.
And I'm thinking of other teams too, because I like Dorian and Roadkill. I thought they were a fun team, you know. But I'm going with the Eliminators, and they were ahead of their time. Again, you think about some of these teams that are always doing tandem offense, and they're always so in sync with one another, and you feel like that's stuff that happened in like the 2000s with indie wrestling. No, it was the Eliminators. Perry Saturn, Saturn is.
Yeah.
Really, really good wrestler. Cronus was this really big dude. He was about 300 pounds when he was in shape, and then he'd get out of shape and be even heavier, but he cut the most pretty 450 splash.
Yeah, I forgot how big he really was.
The best finisher. It was called Total Elimination, where I can't remember which guy did which, but one guy did like a straight up Mortal Kombat leg sweep, and the other guy did a spinning heel kick, boom, at the same time.
And I want to say Perry Saturn did the high. Yeah.
So they went high and low with a heel sweep and a spin kick, and it was just devastating.
I like it. Kronos actually sounds familiar, just the name and just the thought of him.
He was around ECW a little later after Saturn went to WCW.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, a team that I forgot was Candido and Lance Storm.
Yeah.
They were good. They were
two great wrestlers.
Yeah,
wrestlers. It was always, I guess, Paul's favorite gimmick because Sabu and RVD did the same thing. And then later, even Dreamer and Raven were tag teams. He loved having the tag team champions that hate each other. Yeah. Like that was like his favorite gimmick to do is that we're the tag champs, but we hate each other.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like fuck each other over as much as you can, but also win the match because you like being the champs.
Yeah, it's entertaining.
That was always one of his favorite deals.
Wrestling, man.
So we'll wrap this up with tag teams. Let's just say now we talked about all the separate promotions, but Mark, you start, man. So what top 5 then? We don't have to elaborate too deep who's talking about, but top 5 tag teams all together. Mm-hmm. So lump them all together.
Okay.
Of any era and any
Of any
top
era,
five
your
of all
top
time.
five tag
Okay, the
teams.
top 5 goats.
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't start with me.
No?
Yeah, this gonna take me a second.
You got them ready, Jeff?
I'll get them ready.
All right.
All right.
We don't want dead air, but yeah.
Number 1 all time is the Dudley Boys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say the Dudley Boys. Number 2, probably go with the Hardys. Number 3, number 3. Maybe Demolition. Maybe they could be top 3. 4, Steiners. I love the Steiners. And just for the sake of, I don't want to do it. I don't want to put LOD in there.
And then they're not my favorite.
Yeah, there's nothing.
And especially if you like go back and like look to, I mean, they were huge draws. They made big money throughout the 80s through Crockett and everything like that. You can appreciate all of that. They still call the Road Warrior Pop when Iron Man will hit because there was nothing like it. It was the biggest pop of the night. They were never my favorite. Not really.
The spikes were cool, and the whole
cool.
gimmick was
Doomsday
cool.
Device.
Doomsday Device.
Damn, one of the best. You want to talk
yeah.
top 5 finishes? That might make that list.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're not mine. So.
And it wasn't on my list, but I don't know. So I got 4. I need a 5th. Oh man. Maybe say Harlem Heat. Harlem Heat, number 5. Yeah.
All right, man. I'll hit my top 5. So let Mark get another minute to hone his in. Number 1 for me is the Midnight Express, and you're gonna shit on me for it. But they're number 1. They're my favorite tag team of all time. Shout out to my buddy Patrick Hayes. We are the MOW tag team champions, and we basically are a Midnight Express tribute tag team.
I should have chopped him when I saw him today.
I would love to see you in a Hayes chop battle. His chops are probably better, but then you could start where you start closing the fist, and he'd be in a lot of trouble.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to. He seemed like a really nice guy.
He's not, but he wants to be on the pod at some point too. We'll have to get him down.
No,
there.
we definitely do.
But yeah, the Midnight Express are my top team. The Steiner brothers are my second favorite team of all time. I just fucking love them. I can't emphasize enough how great they were in that early 90s era. My third personal favorite is Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard.
Nice.
Love them. And if you like the revival nowadays,
There you go.
those guys, now it's evolved. It's 2016, 17 when they were really, really firing. So they evolved it, but boy, they had the Arn and Tully, the quick tags, the short corners, and just making every little thing make sense. And then when the babyfaces go for the big spots, they were there. And that's modern era rockers, brainbusters matches. So the brainbusters, Arn and Tully is 3 for me. The Dudleys are 4. The Dudleys are just they're amazing. I still think they're underrated as a team because in WWF TV they were on TV every week. So by the time they split them up, it's like that doesn't make sense. But what else are you doing with them?
They were tag team.
They were tag team for so long. But then when they did split up, you're like, nah, I like them together. You know?
Yeah.
So I think they're 4, and I'm taking the Hart Foundation as 5.
Damn it, that's probably my 5 too. Yeah.
I love the Hart Foundation, the pink and black, and just everything about it, and like Brett and Anvil doing the whip in reverse and whipping Anvil into the buckle into him and stuff, and slingshotting him in, and they, Brett was always the guy that would, when we talk about Singles Run, where you look at all the pay-per-views and you're like, oh, the Brett match on there, man, that was so good. But they were there for the tag team too, because we talk about the demos matches. Demolition's really, really cool. The best matches were definitely the Hearts. Hearts had great matches with the Brainbusters. Even going back weight class, they had great matches with the Bulldogs.
I love the Bulldogs, man. They were great too.
Yeah, so I mean, they had great
teams.
matches with everybody. That's how good the Hearts were. So I don't think over time, like they are like the top 5 best tag team, but for me, they're in my top 5.
Nice. Well, top 5 is going to be a lot easier for me. These are my top 5 favorites, not necessarily the top best or top 5 best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I started off with the Hardy Boys because they're probably my favorite tag team of all time.
It's understandable.
You said the New Age Outlaws, and I wanted to punch myself in the face for not thinking of them earlier. So New Age Outlaws number 2, just because they're they were all around just great. They were entertaining. They were great on the mic. I mean, anybody that can get over Mr. Ass is cool with me. You know what I mean?
Badass Billy Gunn turned into Mr. Ass.
Yeah. I mean,
He had a whole song wrote for him.
I'm the ass man. Yeah.
Mount.
I mean, you couldn't do that today.
No.
Let's see. Number 3. they should.
I'm Mr. Dong.
Who could they
Mr.
do
Dong.
that with?
Well, Joey Ryan is actually that gimmick on the Indies, more or less doing the dick flip. So not even that is original.
Number 3, Edge and Christian. Even though it was kind of wasn't. I mean, they started out in the Brood and everything, and they were a tag team for a while
How
too.
cool was the Brood?
I liked the Brood actually.
It was funny. Is more people like the Brood now than they did when the Brood was around.
Yeah, if more people like the Brood now than did then, Gangrel probably would have run like Edge and Christian did. Gangrel's probably out there like, where are you fuckers at back then that loved my entrance
We were
so
just
much?
like, it was kind of ridiculous, but then now we look back and we're like, Bloodbaths were fucking sweet. They always go out and be like, whoa.
For sure. I mean, even the entrance and everything. Like, he spit the blood out on every. Like, it
Yeah,
was
the fire, the ring of fire they'd come up through.
Coming up the stage of the Ring of Fire, just giggling with his
The gauntlet of
just reminds me of a better time. Like, you would see him on Heat back in the day.
Yeah.
Like that.
They added all those heats to the network.
I
now.
saw
I watched
that.
a couple of them because I was like,
Are
I
they?
thought
Did
about
they
it.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I still pay for the network, and I probably haven't fired it up in 3 weeks.
I fired it up just recently and watched a couple things like Table for 3 and shit like that. That's a nice
There's
one.
so much on there.
Too much almost to watch.
This is again a sidebar. People would talk about like, well, why would you want to watch all those old Thunders? They weren't good. Well, I kind of like it.
Yeah,
I kinda
it's
wanna watch
nostalgic.
this
'Cause I
shit.
watched it when I was a
watch
kid.
this. Yeah,
brings you back.
I kind of want to watch the bad wrestling. Like,
Yeah, for sure. Number 4, The Outsiders.
all right. They brought you into a whole company.
The
So-
Outsiders are, when I think of tag teams, they're one of the tag teams I think of for sure. And this wasn't really a tag team. I just want to do something different. It was a tag team, but when it was one of those team ups that was short lived, I just loved kind of the whole weird storyline they were doing at that point. But when X-Pac and Kane teamed up, I loved it.
He taught him how to talk,
Yeah.
and then he stole his girlfriend.
Tori Wilson, yeah.
It was Tori. It was regular.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just
Yeah.
Tori.
Yeah, it was regular
Yeah,
Tori.
you're right. But isn't her? Yeah, you're right. It was
Yeah.
Tori.
He taught him how to talk. He did the socket.
Yeah, it was either that or Rock and Sock Connection.
Rocket Sox again. Yeah, they're not like the greatest tag team because you could have called it. Boy, with the stuff they did together, it was fun.
They were the tag team champions before, so
But like I said, that's why I didn't say top 5, just kind of my
favorites,
Yeah.
Your 5 favorites are your 5 favorites. You're tied up
Exactly.
to 'em. You have a microphone and you have a camera. You can
Say whatever
say
the
whatever
fuck,
the fuck you want to say.
So, whether they
Oh,
like it or
man.
not, those are them.
those teams brought me back, man.
Tag team wrestling, man. I love tag team wrestling. The Bushwhackers were terrible in the ring, but like how fun was a goddamn
Everybody
Bushwhackers
knows
match.
the Bushwhackers, though. You do this, people know what you're
People
doing. Most
know
of
what
them.
you're doing.
I
still.
had a Bushwhacker camo hat when I was a kid.
I remember
Wow.
that.
Oh, so awesome. Then my dad stole it and worked in it. I was like, you bastard.
Yeah. So even your crummy teams like the Bushwhackers could just bring back fond memories. I love tag team wrestling. There's
Yep.
so many different things you can do, so many different stories you can tell. Hey, it's our podcast, right? I'll tell one good personal indie story about a tag match that I loved.
Okay.
I teamed up with a wrestler named Brain Damage, and he was known on the indies, like in Combat Zone Wrestling and IW Mid-South. He did all the King of the Deathmatch stuff. So
Okay.
you're talking, glass and nails and barbed wire and
Fire.
Shit.
and that's what he was known for. He was one of the top guys doing that. But he came up with our group with MCW. So we're doing this. It actually started a singles match. It was me versus Christian Vaughn singles match. He has a guy named the Big Hurt who's outside on the floor, and he interferes like just blatantly, like 3-4 times, to the point where it's stupid, right?
Okay.
Brain Damage's music hits. Crowd goes fucking nuts. They make it an impromptu tag match, all right? So we just tell the simplest story in the world, though everybody wanted to see Brain Damage just kill these guys, right? That's all anybody wanted to see. So you build to that. If you give it to him immediately as soon as he gets out there, they got it. No, kick my ass for 10 more minutes. And when they throw me into the corner, I'm going to elbow one and knock him down. I'm going to make the tag, and I can't get it, and they'll stop me. And same thing. They'll be beating me up in the corner, and I'll fight them back. I go to make the tag again, and they just grab my ankle last second.
Right.
We did that like 4 times, probably 4 false tags. And every time the crowd is here, then they deflate it.
Building up and building up.
And so then finally, I make that tag. All he does is go in there and he throws like 3 punches, throws the guy to the floor. I get back in, hit the finish, and it's over. And the crowd is going nuts, right?
Nice.
We get to the back, and this is a guy. I mean, and what I just told you is one of the simplest matches you can have, but it just told that story. So here's a guy who was doing barbed wire and chairs and fire and tacks and glass and all that stuff. And he is just giddy. He's like, that was so much fun, guys. That was amazing. God, that was great. Oh, my God, I had so much fun out there with you guys. And that's just one of my favorite stories. He's passed now, but that's one of my favorite stories about him is that he, a guy that worked in bigger shows and everything like that, loved just the very simple story being told in a tag team match.
Yeah.
Because that's a story that you can't tell in any
A singles match.
In a
Yeah.
singles
for
match,
sure.
yeah.
That's
cool.
awesome.
That sounds
And
like-
he, it probably just that crowd pop and that reaction was
Yeah.
probably like
That final tag, I bet that was the loudest
the
noise in that
building,
place.
yeah.
Yeah.
Built to that set, all they wanted to see was him kill those guys, and he came in and threw like 3 or 4 punches, and they bumped and sold their asses off for him. But it's all they wanted to see.
That's awesome.
And then the good guys prevailed, and happy crowd.
You were not a good guy though.
Hell yeah.
Wilbur Whitlock was a good guy. You can have
You're a good baby face.
I'm a good
You are
babyface.
one of the best, and I'm telling you right now, this guy's one of the best heels in the indie business.
Nice.
Did you ever tell him the story about the kid jumping out of the bush?
the kid.
No.
Oh, God.
Story. Hell no.
I laughed my ass
I was
off.
going to punch him.
It was so
You're gonna
funny.
jump the bushes at me. I was on my way out the door, and I had another wrestler tip me off. Said, "Hey, there's a kid outside waiting in the bushes for you." And I was like, in wrestling, we rib each other all the time. Like, there's always jokes, Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, he's actually waiting in the bushes. Like, no, I walked past. This kid kind of startled me. I said, what the fuck are you doing? He said, I'm waiting for Wilbur to come out here. I'm going to get him. And I was like, it's a kid? He's like, yeah, he's probably like 11 or 12. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go mess with him. So
Wow.
I go outside, and I seen like other fans walking to the car. So I just go out there just in full character talking shit. Because I won shittily, I was like, everybody, you go home. You tell your family you saw the best. You saw Wilbur Whitlock tonight. And then I see the kid that kind of standing in the bushes. And I'm like, come out here and do something then, little fucker.
I like it.
And he was... and he ran away. I also had a kid stab me with a pen.
Wow.
Did I tell you that one?
Yeah, I thought those were the same.
No,
those
there
were
was 2. No, there was a kid in the
Yeah.
bushes. There was a kid standing in the bed. The kid stabbed me with the pen on the way back to the curtain. I'm
Damn.
walking back, and I'm talking some shit, and I see like and kids will kind of like walk back with you, and they're yelling. There's 3 kids, and 2 of them are you suck, you suck, you suck, and like yeah, your mom sucks. Like go ask her, I know, whatever.
Yeah.
So 2 kids are talking shit. The third kid's not saying a thing. He's just got that 100-yard stare, like he's probably killed somebody at this point. Damn. So he's just staring. I'm like, I don't know, I like that little kid.
He's just
So
stabbing
I'm
strangers.
walking past, and I feel it's in my arm. That's it. He stabbed me with a pen.
Damn.
And he ran away.
Like how
Little
deep?
shit.
Just like the tip of the pen.
It
or
didn't.
was
It didn't
sticking
draw.
in your
It didn't
arm?
draw blood.
No.
But I felt it.
But it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Dude. You had that much heat.
Yeah,
much
dude.
heat.
That's
That
good.
Kids
Stab
wanted
me
to
with a
fucking
pen.
kill you.
That's
That's stone cold heat right there. That is awesome.
That is amazing.
We got sidetracked on our awesome tag team podcast here.
We did.
What do you think? You think we should maybe take a little breather and maybe I don't know about you guys. You want to fire off another one?
Yeah.
Another pod?
No,
I think
yeah,
we could
might
talk
as
for a while.
Yeah.
I think this
Just
would be
shoot
good.
two
fun.
while we're at it.
I think this would be good for the viewers, the listeners right now.
No, for sure.
We got a great tag team pod and talking MMA, talking pro wrestling with Jeff Hughes. We didn't get too heated up. I think we were.
No, we actually got along.
we were maybe a little too friendly. So,
Yeah. See,
so
that's
maybe we could
that's-
wrap this one up and and see him on the next episode, right?
Yeah, shit. Well, 2 episodes in a row with Jeff Hughes. Fuck it, might as well. We got the
a
time.
special guest.
I have no plans.
Cool.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Well, I guess with that said, this was Ohio WrestleCast number 4 with special guest Jeffy Hughes over here. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. T-shirts available at mattarcher.threadless.com. And yeah, until next time.
Hey, do us all a favor too. If you like this and you're subscribing on iTunes, Google Play, whatever you're doing, tell your friends. And listen, even if they don't like wrestling, do us a favor, subscribe, leave a review. I know, at least with iTunes, they love that shit. So you leave a review, a 5-star rating. It will help us become a little more recognizable when somebody might be searching for pods to listen to. So even if you don't even listen, or your friends aren't interested, help us out. Throw a review on us, 5-star rating, subscribe. Try to get those numbers out because Mark's working his ass off to put together a good podcast here.
Really
We're not doing much. We're just giving our opinions.
I'm drinking beer and talking.
Mark
wrestling.
is the fucking backbone behind this.
Do this anyway. So.
I can't argue with that. I'm doing it all.
So if they could do that, get some subscriptions going, and I think there'd be a lot of people out there that would like listening to this show.
Absolutely.
For sure. But yeah. And anything else, Jeff? You want to say anything?
I'll see you guys next episode.
All right. There you go.
Bye, Internet.